In this video we're going to have a look at getting started with Arduino. So we're going to look at what an Arduino is and what they can be used for, and then we're going to talk about how to get set up so that you can start writing some code for an Arduino and start building some circuits to use your Arduino with. So the first question that we need to answer is, what is an Arduino? If you go to Google and you type that question in, you might get a response like this. It's an open source electronic prototyping platform enabling users to create interactive electronic objects. Now this is completely correct, but it doesn't really help us understand what an Arduino really is. So what is it? To put it simply, an Arduino is a simple computer. Now there are lots of different kinds of Arduino. Some are more expensive, some are less expensive, some are more complex, some are less complex, some are more powerful, some are less powerful in terms of computational power. But they are all relatively simple computers. So this picture on the right hand side is a picture of an Arduino Uno, which is one of the most commonly used Arduino boards. All that's on this board is a microcontroller, which is this black chip here, and all the circuitry necessary to run that microcontroller and let you connect it to your computer. So what is a microcontroller? It is basically a little self-contained computer. So this chip contains the CPU, it contains the RAM, and it contains the memory. So it has everything needed to run programs. So if it's just a computer, then what can we use it for that we can't just use our laptop or our phone or our desktop computer for? And the answer to that is that we can use it to connect to all sorts of electronics and electronic circuits like lights, motors and sensors. Now you could connect those things to your laptop or your desktop. It's certainly possible, but it's much easier to connect it to an Arduino because the Arduino has been designed with that in mind. So it's easier to connect sensors and motors to your Arduino than it would be to connect them to your laptop. It's also a little bit safer because just in case anything goes wrong, we don't mind as much if our Arduino would break that we would mind if our laptop broke. So what are some of the sensors and actuators that we could connect to an Arduino? There are a lot of different sensors that we could connect, and here are just a few of them. So we have sensors like thermistors, which is a temperature sensor. We have phototransistors and LDRs, which are both sensors that sense light. We have sensors like infrared sensors, which are usually used to determine how far away the sensor is from something else. We can have sensors that measure our movement, so gyroscopes and accelerometers. These can measure how fast we're rotating or how fast we're accelerating. We can measure all sorts of things about our environment. We can measure soil moisture, we can measure temperature, we can measure air humidity, we can measure vibration, all sorts of things. We can also measure things about ourselves, so we can measure our heart rate, we could measure our skin temperature. So there are a lot of different sensors that we could use with an Arduino, and they're all relatively simple to use as well. What about actuators? Well, the two main sorts of actuators that you're probably going to use with an Arduino are some sort of motor and some sort of servo motor. A servo motor typically rotates 180 degrees, so it does not continuously rotate. It rotates between two fixed angles, and a brushless motor is just an example of an electric motor. So in this example, it's attached to the front of a plane with a propeller on it. So there are lots of different actuators that you could use with your Arduino. When we combine these, we can create some really cool things. So if you combine enough motors together in the right way, we can create some sort of robot arm. We could create something like this with an Arduino and a bunch of motors. Now, on the left, we have a picture of the Mars rover. We can't quite create that with an Arduino, but we could certainly create something that behaves similarly. So we could make some sort of robot that has a bunch of wheels that could drive along, and it could measure where it is and maybe pick up things. So once we start combining sensors and actuators, we can create some really cool things. So how do you get started? Well, there are a few options really. You could go out and buy an Arduino and some wires and some sensors and some motors, download the Arduino software and go that route. And there's nothing wrong with doing that at all, but if you want to do that, it will cost a little bit of money and it'll take a bit of time to get started. So instead, we're going to use a free online simulator called Tinkercad. Now this will require that you create an account to use it, so make sure that you ask your parents if that is okay. But using this simulator, we can create circuits, electronic circuits with sensors and actuators and connect them to a virtual Arduino which we can program and simulate it running. So it's quite a quick and easy way to get started. To make a Tinkercad account, you'll have to go to their website. So if we go to our web browser and go to www.tinkercad.com. Now, we might have to wait a few seconds for the website to load, as it can take 10 or 15 seconds sometimes. It's not the fastest website to load. So once the page has loaded, you need to click on the Join Now button in the upper right-hand corner of the page. From there, you need to click on the Create a Personal Account button, and then you can choose to either sign in with your Google account, or if you don't have a Google account, you can click on Sign Up with Email, fill in the details here, and create your account. So that's all for this video. Once you've created your account, you can move on to the next video where we use Tinkercad to create a simple circuit with an Arduino and a light.